Hey YouTube, it's Maya here. Welcome back to my channel, and guys, it has been a hot minute since I have done a story time video. So for this week's video, I thought I would bring the story times back and tell you guys a very cringy story of my first boyfriend. But if you've never been to my channel before and you like what you're seeing, then please subscribe and click that little notifications bell. That way you'll always be notified whenever I make new videos. Now let's not dawdle on anymore and get straight into the video. Alright guys, to start off this story, we gotta do some time traveling. So let's go back to the summer of 2016. This all started at a summer theater camp. So this theater camp was one I was very familiar with. I had been going to the camp since I was in 4th grade, so about 8 or 9 years old, and I was 13 at the time, so I had been going to this camp for about 5 years. So basically how this camp worked was a bunch of kids between the ages of 6 and 18 would come to this theater camp, and we would be separated into groups based on your age. And within your groups, you would take about 2 to 3 acting classes, 1 music class, and a dance class with all of the camp counselors there. And then everyone in the camp as a whole would put on a musical production. One of the camp counselors was the director for that week. We would audition for parts on Monday, find them out on Tuesday, start rehearsing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then on Friday we would have a big performance for our families and friends. So when I got to camp, I locked eyes with one of my friends. We'll just call her Felicia, and I immediately ran over to her and started hugging her and catching up because I hadn't seen her throughout the whole school year. And then he walks in. We're just gonna call him Kyle. So Kyle immediately got Felicia's attention. She was very attracted to him. He was a pretty cute 8th grader. Anyway, so the rest of my friends get there, and then we go into the theater, and we get split into our groups. Kyle's in my group. And, you know, we kind of start up a conversation, and we learn that he is a singer, actor, dancer. He also was a parkour artist. And then we found out, so I believe I was actually 14 at the time. He was 15, and Felicia was like 12. So immediately, Kyle was like, oh, I don't know if I want to date a girl who's 3 years younger than me. Even Felicia was like, oh, he's a lot older than I would think. So they basically split it off. And right after they kind of stopped, we started realizing how he started showing off a lot and trying to, like, I don't know, like, get in trouble, I guess. Like, he started flipping off of tables and getting in trouble because you shouldn't be flipping off tables. And I thought he was super, super annoying. And to top it all off, I believe this happened on the first day we met him. We were in the theater about to get ready for the big group rehearsal where we would audition for our roles. I believe that week we were doing the musical, I think we were doing Hairspray. We're all sitting in the theater, and Felicia starts talking about shaving. And I was sitting there like, oh, I've never had to shave because I have no hair on my legs. And Kyle was very intrigued, came over to me, sat down next to me, and then just felt up my leg. Ooh. And then he did the same thing to Felicia and like my other friend too. And we were all like, okay, dude, that was uncalled for, very uncalled for. And then the next day I come to camp and I completely ignore him because I was just so done with him at that point. And Kyle like clearly caught on to it because later when we went to the big group rehearsal to find out what roles we got, he literally turns around and asks me, hey, why are you ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? And I decided to give him a piece of my mind. And I said, you know, just because you're cute, it doesn't mean you can go around feeling up girls' legs. And this kid, he must have like turned around and like had a smug smirk because something in his brain like switched. Because from this moment on, this kid would not leave me alone. Like, he was by my side. I swear, the minute I called him cute, he was just like, I want her. Oh, okay. So I remember now. We were actually doing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, not Hairspray. I happened to get the role of Veruca Salt. We were working on the scene where Augustus Gloop, he like eats from the chocolate fountain or something and then like freezes and stuff like that. And during this scene, we were singing the Oompa Loompa song, and I happened to be frozen during this part. And like Kyle like sat right next to me. And after the scene was over, I like sat next to him and I was like, can you please like leave me alone? And he just gave me like this little smirk, and he decided to put his hand down on my hand like this, almost like we were holding hands. And me being the very desperate, there's literally no other way to put this. I was desperate. I suddenly got interested. Okay. Whew, anyway, so I leave Tuesday kind of intrigued, but also kind of confused because I didn't like him, and he was clearly moving very fast with this relationship, if you could even call it that. So Wednesday comes, and at this point, it's like fairly obvious that we both like each other. Everyone in the camp knows that we like each other. Every time we do the machine scene, he sits right next to me and like he does that hand grabby thing again. Only this time I was the one who initiated the hand grabby thing, because I put my hand right next to his and then he looked at my hand and we were backstage in between running lines, and I was sitting in a chair and he like came over to me and sat like on the armrest and like kept trying to like talk to me and, you know, flirt a little bit. And I was trying to practice my lines because we literally had 2 days until show. And I was like, hey, you know, like, why don't you just go over there and you practice your lines and I'm going to practice mine. And I'm going to say he really did not listen. He also put his hand in a kind of uncomfortable place. I'm not going to go too into detail. He did not like take advantage of me or anything like that. He just happened to place his hand somewhere I wasn't comfortable with. So I feel like that's especially why I was like, you just leave me alone. I want to practice my lines. You practice your lines. And at that point, my friends, like Felicia and then a few other people, had noticed that I was trying to get away from him. And they also knew that it wasn't a good idea for me to date this guy because he's kind of crazy. So they literally like formed a wall in between him and me. I remember waiting backstage before my scene where I come on and introduce myself, and I was waiting right by the curtain, and he like comes up behind me and like tries to hug me, and all my friends literally like book it in front of him and just like stand there and like are pushing him back and being like, no, leave her alone, she has to go on stage. And like there were a lot of red flags going, but I was still intrigued. And I went home on Wednesday being like, you know what, I kind of wish she gave me that hug from behind. Thursday, the end of the day comes and he asks me out. And let me just remind you, this is literally my 4th day of knowing this guy. He has already shown himself to be very self-centered. He touches girls without their permission and is very maybe not forceful, but you know, like he has like tunnel vision. Like when he wants something, he will only go after that. But I said yes. So Friday comes and it's the day of the performance. And he still kind of tries to be very flirtatious backstage, but I was like show mode. I was like... And so the performance ends, and we're the only ones in the hallway, and I don't remember what he said, but he like hugged me, and then we like separated, and there was like this moment of like... how do you even describe this? Like love tension? And then he leaned in and he kissed me. And that was my very first kiss. Although I did technically kiss someone in kindergarten, but no one really counts those, so this was my official first kiss. And I hate that it was with this guy. So after he kisses me, actually one of my friends, we'll call him Tyler, he comes out of the exit and spots us just as like we're parting from the kiss, and he goes, ooh. So we go to the lobby where all the parents are mingling. I went up to my dad and was like, hey dad, this is my friend Kyle. Obviously not introducing him as my boyfriend. I just introduced him as a friend, and my dad thinks he's a very nice boy. And then I go over and meet Kyle's mom. She was a very nice person. Yada, yada, yada. We separate for the weekend. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention too. I'm sorry, I keep backtracking, but I'm remembering details as I'm going. Kyle was only supposed to come to this theater camp for 1 week. But because we started dating, I really wanted him to come back the next week. That way I could see him again. And so I convinced him to return the second week. So even though we were parting for the weekend, we knew we'd see each other again on Monday. Anyway, so the weekend rolls around and my family happened to take a weekend vacation for some reason. I think it was just because I was so busy with dance and then my theater camp that we didn't really get a week to ourselves to go on a formal family vacation for the summer. So we went on a mini vacation over the weekend, and him and I were literally on the phone all weekend long. We were texting, we were calling, we were already saying I love you, which is just way too soon. Okay. Anyway, so it's week 2 now. We're doing Hairspray this week. He goofed around a lot during rehearsal, and he actually had a few lines to sing in one of the songs, and I remember my music director was like, hey, pay attention, you need to learn these lines. And Kyle says, oh, sorry, I can't focus, it's my ADHD. Okay, I know people who have ADHD do have trouble focusing, but it just felt weird for him to suddenly announce that he had ADHD, when, it was obvious he just really didn't want to be there. It wasn't that he wasn't, focusing, it was more of, he did not want to be in this camp. He literally only came the second week because of me. Whenever we went to music rehearsals, I always tried to sit away from him, that way he could focus, but he never did, which was a huge problem for me because I am someone who wants to be with someone who's a hard worker, I don't want someone to just, BS something. And I completely understand if you're BSing something when you don't like it, but from what Kyle had told me at the time, it really seemed like he wanted to be in theater. So it just felt very annoying that he did not want to focus. And just to keep a timeline, we're still on Tuesday. He was goofing off and making a huge mess with the part that he got from Monday and Tuesday. It was just a 2-day span of all of this information. So that night we decided to call. And this next portion of the story is it's a little uncomfortable for me to talk about on YouTube. Mom, if you're watching, please click off. It was August, and my house isn't really the best with ventilation, so I was very hot in my room, and I was wearing a low-cut shirt. It wasn't super low that you could see some stuff, but it was not fully covering. And we were on FaceTime. Well, not really FaceTime. We were actually on Uvu. Who remembers that app? I start to notice he's kind of doing something under the phone. And when I ask him about it, it was a very uncomfortable response. Something that I had not been exposed to. And something I was extremely uncomfortable with. And I was like, okay, gotta go, bye. So at this point, I was totally done with this guy. Very done. This guy was also a music-clear. And I remember one time he texted or called me and was like, hey babe, do you think Musical.ly is going downhill? And I was like, I think it's been going down since it came out. And he was like, no, that's my whole fan base. And at the time, he literally only had 3,000 followers, which is a decent amount, but not enough to be like, oh my god, I'm a star. I don't know. I guess when you're that age, any followers is a lot of credit. I don't know. Anyway, so Wednesday rolls around and Kyle doesn't show up to camp. And I was really upset about that because I already knew that he was slacking off, but now he was missing a whole day of rehearsals. Like, that put us really far behind. And so I was really annoyed. So Thursday rolls around. He's still not at camp. And I was like, what the heck? Like, come on. Like, now he literally cannot have his part. He missed 2 days of rehearsals, and those 2 days are super crucial in terms of blocking and learning the numbers and all this jazz. So basically, he was like kicked out of the program, and I was super mad because he didn't talk to me about it, and I wish he had. And I was just kind of done with his antics. So that night, I called my dear friend. We'll call her Alyssa. I called her and I was like, hey, I'm dating this guy and I'm not really feeling it. Like, he slacks off. He doesn't seem like a hard worker. He kind of did some inappropriate stuff that made me uncomfortable. And my friend Alyssa is sitting there like, you don't seem happy. Like, just break up with him, It's not worth it. And I was like, you know what? You are right. So after I got off the phone with Alyssa, I called Kyle and was like, hey, I really like you, but I just don't think this is working out. And I basically explained to him why I was kind of annoyed with his behavior and uncomfortable with a lot of the things he was doing in our relationship. And I just felt like it was a little too fast and I wasn't ready. And he was pretty much silent the whole time. And after I finished, he was like, okay, bye, and then just hung up. The next day, the camp counselors had basically heard that he had dropped the whole program. They quickly recasted his roles, and we went on without him. He was actually supposed to be my dance partner for like the dance finale of Hairspray, and I ended up just being with the kid Tyler, actually. Tyler ended up being my partner, so that was fun. But basically, when I go home that night, I realize my phone is blowing up with text messages from this guy, kind of like blaming me and getting really upset over the fact that I broke up with him. Like, I don't really remember what he said, but he was just kind of, I feel like it was along the lines of like, how could you do this to me? I really, really like you. I can't believe this. And I felt like really, really, really bad. Like, I cried. But I knew in my heart that I really didn't like him in the way that he liked me, at least. And I just felt uncomfortable. So I just basically stopped the conversation and I was like, hey, I don't regret my decision. I really don't like you. I think this is for the best. And we're done. Even though I didn't regret my decision on breaking up with him, a part of me did miss him for some reason. Because I did kind of like him. Ugh, I hate that I did. In December of that year, I texted him and I was like, hey, I'm really sorry about what happened. I hope you can forgive me. And he just like sent a huge paragraph yelling at me and like being super angry, very aggressive. And I was like, all right, I'm done with this kid. I am done. And I have never talked to him since then. Oh, wow, that was a doozy. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that roller coaster of a story. I'm sorry if at any point it got confusing or hard to follow. I didn't remember some of the information and it was just like coming at me and I was just releasing it as it came. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to hear another story time. I can also talk about another summer fling I had literally a year later. So if you guys want to hear that story, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, guys, I will see you in my next video. Bye!